On this week's Bet the Process, sponsored by Novig, the best sports prediction market in the world. They actually were so nice to kind of like, it was almost like a Novig Calcutta last night, right? We had Novig
You
people
know what's funny is
participating.
when I refer to sometimes I'll refer to Vig Free line as a no Vig line, and it confuses people because I'm not actually talking about the prediction market no Vig.
Yes. Anyways, you subliminally mentioned them. Remember, this is the intro right now that we're just babbling about. So, but the point on this no vig thing right now, if you're listening to this, if you still listen, you haven't fast forward, is that you should go there because it's the best place to bet futures for sure. We know that because it's two-sided futures markets, and it's the only place you can really get great two-sided. Well, you can probably get them other places, but let's just pretend it's the only place that you can get really good two-sided futures markets. Yes,
Well,
Rufus.
it is definitely the best place to be betting these games, these NFL playoff games and the college football playoff games, because you're basically getting like no juice. It's minus 101 plus 101. I mean,
We should
minus
call
101 plus
should we
100,
buy no juice, nojuice.com, and we'd start
and
no
then
juice,
resell it.
sell it to them. Yeah, sell it to them. Sorry, bros. All right. Anyways, with that, we have Judah Fortgang on from Throw the Damn Ball, and we go through every wild card game in nauseum. And with that, let's start the process. Welcome to another episode of the Bet the Process podcast. It is a super wild card weekend, maybe the last. I mean, today is the day before Christmas because tomorrow Christmas starts. You like, and what I mean by Christmas is the first playoff game, first semifinal
Yeah,
playoff game. You like Miami in that game, right?
I do. That's a tomorrow one. Yeah, I do. I do. I do.
What do you make that line?
I make it Miami minus 6.4.
Okay,
So
so it's around three and a half. It's around three and a
yeah,
half right
and
now.
I think there's some. I mean, the stuff that's not baked into my numbers is all the turmoil surrounding Lane Kiffin and the assistants that were coaching last week, like Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator, for example, and you know,
Well, he's still coaching, right? Charlie
yes,
Weis
yeah,
Jr. is still coaching, and like their running backs coach is still coaching, and Joe Judge is still coaching, and this head coach that they're coming is still coaching. So it's not nothing.
right. I mean, like Pete Golding though said something about how he wasn't sure who he would have for the Ole Miss game. Like Charlie Weiss Jr. after the game went down to Baton Rouge and was meeting with recruits, right? Like so for LSU, it just doesn't seem like a great situation. And I'm not saying like I'm saying independent of that, I still like Miami, and I don't think that actually. I if anything, it's a strike against Ole Miss. Clearly, if you have your offensive coordinator whose attention is being divided between entertaining recruits for a different team and coming up with a game plan. Like that's not an ideal situation.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to imagine that that's good.
Right.
Why do you think your numbers differ from so much from SP Plus,
I don't know. I honestly can't tell you.
or why do they differ so
I
much
think
from the
I'm
market? Like
just higher on Miami, maybe.
yeah. I mean you've been high on Miami all year to some degree, right? Like you had them against Ohio State, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So, and then the other question, which I think we've discussed from a post-mortem perspective, next year, if it's the same format, which it probably won't be, they probably will go to 16 teams next year. But
You
if it
think
is
so?
the same format, would you actually ding the bye teams for
Yeah,
rust?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that did we discuss it on the pod? We did, right?
We
I
discussed
certainly
it.
discussed
We
it.
discussed
Maybe
it
off. No, I discussed
pre.
it off the pod.
We discussed it pre having four more games of evidence. I think last year the challenging thing was that you had a bunch of the bye teams that were much worse than the home teams, right? Because of
Yeah.
the way they did bye. So I didn't think last year meant anything. I think this year there's a little bit of it's a little interesting because these teams did look, although Georgia just played a terrible game. I mean, it's
Georgia looked like the far inferior team, and I was on Georgia, and that certainly didn't go well. They did not. They were lucky to be in that game. Like Ole Miss was clearly the better team in that game. And how much was Georgia flat due to the layoff? I don't know. Like Indiana, they didn't start super fast, but they, clearly were the dominant team there. And you know, like Texas Tech looked awful on offense.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't do anything on offense. Like or and so I do think like I don't know if I would say you should get like how much you should get dinged, but I clearly don't think there was an advantage to having 3 weeks of rest over, or I guess 3.5 weeks. Whereas like Oregon and the teams that played that first round still did have like a mini bye. They had a week and a half
Yeah, they just
between
have
games.
they have
So
reasonable rest, right? It's like
and you had rest before that too. So it's not like you played 10 games in a row and then suddenly like, they're reasonably fresh and healthy too.
yeah. Okay. What about the second game? Indiana, Oregon.
I leaned Oregon early on. It's kind of moved down a little bit. So I'm basically right in line with the market there. I mean, I make Indiana -3.5. And
If
obviously
you
I have
didn't have priors at all, what would you make that line?
no priors. I haven't actually come up with the no prior. I mean,
Because my theory on this Indiana team, and this is like just the eye test, this is like literally not, is if they had like Alabama on their front of their chest, or they had one of these other teams on the front of their chest, they would be respected a lot more than they are from what they've done this year.
yeah, no, I think that's very fair. I think that after last week, and I mean, I think that the market is clearly respecting them. And to if
Do you
you
think the
want to
market
the no
disrespected
so
them
so the
last
last
week?
week I actually had ran the no prior numbers, like I could see because I just didn't update it because I don't actually use it. It's just more for my own like to see. It would have been as of a few weeks ago, or week 16, whatever that is. Because now the weeks are weird. It's like week 19 in my data. It would have been Indiana -2. So it's not like, I mean, Oregon's been a good football team as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear that Oregon is despite not being in that Big Ten championship, or seeming like it was in that in that Ohio State, Indiana group, is just a step below,
I mean, it
and
was
not even.
interesting. I mean, they shut out Texas Tech after giving up 34 points to JMU, which was, I didn't see that coming. Like JMU had that 99-yard touchdown drive at the end to get me the backdoor cover.
No, I mean I was on JMU also, and it was like, JMU moved the ball well the whole game. They did. Even in the first half, they moved the ball pretty well. They just turned the ball over and didn't get touchdowns and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, got it. So who would
Is
you
Signetti the
like?
best coach in college football?
Signetti?
Yeah.
Um,
You have to say yes, right?
I mean, I think so, but I don't like making these obvious blanket statements based on, like that's an easy answer, just to say yes, right? Because ultimately, um, well, I again, you go from a team, what, 3 years ago that was probably the worst team in college
They
football,
had
and all of a
three
sudden,
wins. I mean, they
yeah,
weren't the worst team in college football, but like maybe worse
they
in the Big
were. There
Ten.
was like I forgot who said it. They were close to the worst team. They were like 3 or 4 years ago. Like they were one of the worst teams in college football.
They weren't like worse than like, I don't know,
Maybe they were the worst Power Five.
UMasses
Maybe
of
they
the
were the worst
world,
Power
or
Five team.
yeah, okay, because there's some bad teams.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he's great, and like again, that's why I go back to this idea. Again, like Alabama was not good. I think it's
Yeah, they were a
clear.
fraud.
Like
I think Alabama was a fraud.
they Georgia boat raced them. Like everyone was boat racing them, and they got in. And I mean, when it comes down to it, right, the team that probably shouldn't have been in was them.
Notre Dame. Oh, sorry.
No, that Alabama, like everyone talks about Miami not deserving to be in and all that kind of stuff, but the obvious choice was the three-loss team that didn't really
Yeah,
even prove itself. They're the team that shouldn't have been in, even though they made the SEC championship, showing up and playing that poorly. So again, it comes
there's
back
the
to
whole
this
you
idea,
can't penalize them for playing well in the championship,
right?
playing poorly in the
It just
championship
comes
game.
down to the
Yes, you
fact that
can
those
penalize them.
those
And you want, yeah,
those conference championships are stupid at this point. And unless they're going to do something much different with them, they're stupid because it's just creating a game, another game that some teams there's no benefit for them to be in, right? And like ultimately, like it's we'll see what happens with those. I guess they're not going to get rid of him because there's too much money involved.
Yeah, and
So,
tradition and all that.
but
But
like think about
you could, yeah.
the Indiana Ohio State game was literally meaningless. Like Ohio State still showed up as a bye
Well,
team.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's fair. You're right. In retrospect, I don't think Indiana get. Do you think Indiana gets a bye if they lose?
Yeah, I
Because
do.
off
I
of
mean, it would have been
reputation,
close, but
I don't.
yeah.
I mean, they don't have the same reputation as Ohio State.
I mean, but
Ohio State was considered the better team
but
going into
Rufus,
that game.
who would have jumped them? Oregon would have jumped them. Oregon wouldn't have jumped them,
I don't know.
right? Because again,
Yeah.
like you can't penalize the team for being in the championship. So Oregon wouldn't have jumped. Oregon was five, right? So if any team would have jumped them, it would have been Oregon. I mean,
Okay.
Ohio State didn't even
Okay.
fall to four. They fell to three. No, they
Yeah.
fell to two, right?
I don't. I honestly don't
I
remember.
mean, because Texas Tech was four. I think Georgia was three. Yeah, I think Ohio State literally only fell to two. It was
Okay.
a literally
Yeah.
meaningless game.
Yeah.
So, anyways, all right. Any notes on NFL you talk about?
Um. Well, we both did a Calcutta yesterday. That was fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. Did you just end up with the
I
Patriots?
only had one team, the Patriots, which is not a team that I've actually. It's a team that I've laid the no price on futures on this year too. Actually, I haven't
Yeah.
been particularly high on the Patriots, um, but yeah, I got
The
them. Let's.
Patriots one is the one. The Patriots are probably the most like in terms of as a fan and as, like they could be amazing or they could not be very good,
It's
right?
so interesting though. At the beginning of the year, you remember that loss to the Steelers, and I remember because I was big on Patriots like regular season win overs this
Yeah.
year, and I remember being like, oh God, that loss to the Steelers where they turned the ball over 5 times is going to come back to bite me in the ass for my over 8.5. But they ended up or 7.5. I don't even remember. It was like 7.5 or 8.5. Their win total was, they clearly have exceeded expectations by a lot. But but the thought was that they didn't have the upside, right? Like with the receiving core they had, like they kind of like Drake May was hamstrung, and it's funny how
Yeah.
that's kind of changed. And like now it's like okay, they're the most explosive team, and I mean, it's an incredible coaching job by Variable. But in terms of this week and sort of I do have some games where I have some opinions and leans, and like I think, that move towards the Chicago Green Bay game moving towards Green Bay, like, I mean, I make that Green Bay -2.5, and it opened with Chicago as a small favorite. I make the Jaguars a small favorite. That game's basically a pick right now, and Judah's going to talk to us a lot about the Jaguars. I'm pretty much on market with the Eagles game. Lean towards New England a little bit, make it 5.5, and then I think the Steelers should be a 1 point favorite. So that's probably where I'm the furthest off. But maybe it's because I overrate Aaron Rodgers because he's an old white quarterback. You never know.
I mean, the Steelers are perplexing, right? It's just hard to believe they're very good, and yet they continue to win games.
I'm just not as high on the Texans. I mean, they have a great defense, but you know, having a great offense is far more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Interesting.
that's what it
Um,
is.
we're doing a playoff fantasy league, so it's like it's funny these days with all these different ways you can kind of get down like what your portfolio of rooting looks like and where everything falls in. And obviously, like I'm a Patriots fan at the core, but then you get all these different rooting interests. Although I did draft Drake May as my first pick in my fantasy league, so I'm sure everyone cares about that. What are you have any futures positions?
Yeah, I have a good number of them on call sheets. It's more no's than yeses because that's like where you're getting more rec bills. But let's see. Actually, my futures portfolio is let's see. I don't have that much invested. 295,000. My portfolio values plus 9,400. I had some Seattle yes at 11 cents earlier on. So that's good. Uh, so that's a team. I mean, I have some Jaguars that I got at 3 cents earlier. But you're not getting as much on the yes fills. The big no's, the no positions I have: Houston no, Buffalo no, Chicago no, and New England no. Oh, and I do have a Denver futures a big Denver Super Bowl position that I got before the season began. So I like that one.
Are you going to put on any Jaguars futures based on Judah's?
Not based on where they're priced right now, no.
Where would you price them?
Um, let's see. I mean, I ran a sim using the unabated simulator with like kind of some combo numbers because at this point, like I want to bet futures if I think that those are better bets than just actually playing the individual teams in the games. And so based off of that though, like the combo, I used a combination of like Massey Peabody and market based ratings, and and basically I was looking at making sure those ratings essentially reflected what the market is for these wildcard games too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So based on that, I had Jaguars at 5.6%, and I believe
To win the Super Bowl,
to
not
win the
not to
Super
win the
Bowl,
FC.
to win the Super Bowl. And
Yeah.
right now, I mean, they're trading it like on Call Sheet, for example, you can buy at 6%, or you can't buy at 6%. You can bid at 6%. It's 6.7. 6%
Six,
is the
seven.
highest bid. Six,
Yeah.
seven.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. Let's
Yeah.
get into the Ford gang, and we'll talk to you guys all again next week. We now welcome in one of our favorite guests. We kind of bookend the season. We had you on at the beginning of the season. Now we're having you on at the end. Judah Fortgang from Throw the Damn Ball, probably the most important Substack for you guys to all read if you want to find edges in the NFL, which are almost impossible to find these days. Judah, how was your season?
Yeah, great to be back. First of all, the season was, I think, very up and down. Some of the kind of usual SGP angles that I've been successful with, I think, dried up a bit. But it's also, variance is the name of the game. And the first, I was saying, the first 15 weeks were kind of break even, and then we had a bunch of massive hits the last few weeks to make it positive. But such is the life of someone betting on a lot of tails. And then the kind of football fan in me also it finds this to be an incredibly intriguing season because of how wide open the kind of playing field is, and just like it's very rare to have a wild card week with so many kind of road favorites, which I think points to kind of the way the season has gone and where the playoffs might take us.
What does it mean to you that that's the case, right? Like everyone's talked about that, obviously, and then we had this moment in time where we thought like Lamar and Patrick and Josh would all be, road favorites, and it turns out not two of them didn't even make it. So, like, what does this mean to you? Is there any macro trend that we can read into this?
I don't know if it's so much a macro trend, other than like it's possible we were anchoring a bit too much on kind of the quarterback play of the past 3-4 years, which was true to some degree, and may not be as true now. That like who is to say which is the real reality? That like this isn't going to be the new norm, as opposed to just dominant quarterbacks are constantly going to win. And I think like there are a couple of possible macro trends. I think we've seen some like defensive play callers making a pretty big influence. I mean, Seattle, I think, is the obvious example of this. Running the ball has become just more important. This is like a constant cat and mouse game. And I think the ultimate answer is it's probably just randomness. And like winning football games is very random. The Chiefs for the longest time were incredible in one score games. I don't think that was a fluke. And they couldn't win a one score game this year before Patrick Mahomes got hurt. Like these are the sorts of things that are constantly going to come up when you're in a 17 game sample in a game as random as football.
It's interesting. I mean, the Chiefs last year won every like one score game, right? Or something like that. And
Yeah, and like that's probably not a coincidence. Like when you
yeah,
have Patrick Mahomes, his like the skills that Patrick Mahomes is best at are rewarded in that 2-minute, 4-minute drill scenario. And when a team knows you're passing, he is still as good. Like that's not random, but at the same time, like fluky things happen all the time, and those can kind of stack up. Even just like the Patriots season can to some degree be on both sides of the ball. They have very easy past schedule, and I just saw like they played 60% of their snaps against horrific quarterbacks, either backups or guys with who are not 30th in EPA per play. Like these are the sorts of random things that can compound over the course of the season.
I mean, in regards to like the Mahomes thing, it's possible that he is, directly responsible or does have an edge in these close games, but it's also possible that they were playing way ahead of variance, and that the reality is your edges are probably relatively small, even if you do have some edges, and like that kind of came back to catch up with them. Regarding
Both are true.
the running stuff, I think is interesting, right? Because we've talked about like too high safeties, and we've talked about like what is the ultimate. I forgot who we had on, but we talked about like strategy and how like what he'd love to do is see a team that passed whatever 80% of the time or 90, like just some crazy amount of time to see if that's that would be that next like area of edge. When you what happened, or were there any macro trends defensively, schematically, that changed this year based on again, like if last year was the year of too high safeties, is what was this year?
Yeah, I don't know so much. First off, there's maybe an X's and O's answer that like someone more qualified than myself can speak on. I don't know so much if it's too high so much as the main thing I've noticed is the strategy at the end of the first half has changed drastically. When teams entered like a 2-minute drill, they were basically optimizing for scoring a touchdown. This is kind of borne out in the data. It's something I want to write kind of after the season ends. They are running the ball at a way higher rate and frequency. I think that's a lot of the reason why kind of passing yards are down and running is down as well. I also think that just like the quarterback play has not been as good. Like we are entering a mode where it is more optimal to run, both because defenses have kind of anchored on stopping down explosive plays. I think that was kind of the theme of last year. That's been borne out to some degree this year, as well as just like the base rate of quarterback play is not as good. And that's I think a trend we're going to continue to see.
So are you saying at the end of first halves, because teams are understanding optimizing possessions, that they're okay not scoring as long as it's the last possession of the half for them?
Yeah, I actually don't think it's optimal at all, but I think that is what teams are optimizing for. I think we saw it first. The first time I really saw this was like the 2023 playoffs, I want to say. But it's a trend that's really been accelerated this year. And obviously the kickoff has also changed so much of the strategy there and probably accelerated this trend just because, I mean, we were talking about this off air. The Colts were content to take a 1-point lead against the Texans to just kick it out of the back of the end zone. And the team basically needed 25 yards with 2 minutes and 3 timeouts. That's obviously going to change the strategy with field position and how teams approach end of half scenarios. I think all of that is combining into kind of a new way of thinking about like in-game decisions. And obviously it has some downstream effects on run pass and certainly in like volume yardage, which ties back to the SGPs. I think we're not getting the most valuable drives were the 2-minute drills, where like if a team got the ball on the 20-yard line with 90 seconds left or 2.5 minutes left, they were very likely to rack up a lot of passing yards. And that has not been the case this year because teams are really content to run the ball.
I think like one of the interesting trends that I wonder if it will happen is game theory around game state and knowing that your opponent will behave suboptimally based on a game state. Like it's almost like these situations where it's worth it to take a risk, even if you're down in a situation, like basically like controlling the situation, knowing that if you give them back the ball when you're down more points or something like that, that they'll play even more conservatively with the risk of basically being in a situation where you could win. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but like it's basically like, let's say you go for 2 in a situation where, you know, I'm not articulating this well, but it's essentially the idea that like teams are so conservative when they have the lead versus when they're either down or tied that it's almost better to sometimes give them the ball with the being down. I don't know if that's
It's a game theory argument. I think Eric Eager wrote a great article about this a number of years ago of like why you shouldn't kick to go up 6 at the end of games, which I think points at a similar point, which is if a team is just trying to go for 3, which for what it's worth, like the Ravens in the last drive before the second Zay Flowers touchdown were like totally content to take that game to overtime. And they were like taking their time. I thought they should have sped it up a bit. That is like 100% true, right? When you don't want to go, if you force a team to optimize for a touchdown, they're probably going to try and score a touchdown rather than be content to score three. There's like a psychological / game theory component that is certainly true. And I think kind of adds to the cat and mouse game of football and decision making, which is constantly changing as the rules of the game change, as the skills of the players change, and as like tendencies change, right? Like decision making is very different in 2025, 2026 than it was in 2020.
All right, let's move into the games this week. First on the docket, the LA Rams, 10-point favorites against the Panthers with the total of 46.5. Curious about any thoughts you have in that game.
Yeah, it's not a side I'm playing. I guess I'll take kind of a high level view of like the Rams. I think this is an offense that has probably been the best in the NFL, and they're winning both in the run and pass game. They're kind of top 5 in any efficiency metric you want to use there. Getting Devontae Adams back, I think, is also kind of huge for them. Not throwing to some 5-7 receivers downfield will I think be pretty helpful in getting Adams back. The kind of interesting piece, I think, on the Rams side is that the defense has not been the same kind of in the second half of the season as the first half of the season. If you want to look at like their perfect coverage rate, for instance, perfect coverage refers to plays in which every coverage player does their job. Coverage weak link system. Offense only needs one of those coverage players to make a mistake to be successful. It's a very kind of, I think, leading indicator in understanding defensive play. They're bottom 5 over the second half of the season right now, and we've seen some teams really take advantage of that. I don't think Carolina is necessarily the team that's going to go with that air raid style attack. They've had basically one game this entire year that was against Atlanta, where they let Bryce Young throw the ball kind of 40 times or passed at like 11% over expected. I think that's probably the best and optimal path for Carolina, actually, but is not a game plan that they've taken. I think the way this goes is probably as the market sees it. The Rams are a far superior team. Carolina is still not the best team to take advantage of the Rams' weaknesses. They're probably going to try and play the kind of slow time of possession game, win the turnover battle as they did against the Rams the first time around. But you're really relying on some kind of key turnovers and fluky plays. The pressure to sack rate in that game was over 50%. It's not exactly a recipe to sustain, but it's not a game where I have particularly strong opinions.
But if you're a big dog like that, don't you want to shorten the game?
So that's, I think, where it comes into play, which is what their strategy. Yes, I think that is macro level true. I think on the matchup level, it's probably less true. And that's kind of where these two interact and where you need to make some sort of decision. Yes, the more plays you run, the kind of better the opponent is at expressing their skill dominance over you. But it's also a question of like how this interacts on the matchup level.
Okay, next game up, Chicago Bears, small one, -1. It seems like it's going back and forth.
No, the Packers are a favorite now.
Yeah.
Packers definitely favorite. I think the key thing in this game is going to be the weather.
On Chris, the Bears are
you have
-1.
We have a lot of weather type games this week. It seems like. I mean, like Carolina, there might be a little bit of rain, but like, okay, you have Bears, Packers, but then you also have like cold weather games with some wind, where you have the road team is a team from a warmer climate. I don't know if we can call San Francisco a warmer climate, but it's certainly doesn't have winter, right? Like, because, Philly, you have the Patriots hosting the Chargers, Steelers hosting the Texans, an indoor, Texas team. And it's going to be like 30 degrees ish for like all those games.
Yeah. I don't buy so much the where the opponent comes from.
The cold weather acclimatization.
The cold weather opponent. Yeah. Like all these guys.
I mean, there's been all this academic research done on this, right? I mean, although it goes back a gazillion years. And I kind of like looked at it again this year. There was a game with I think it was Pittsburgh hosting Miami, and it was like really cold weather and like 20 degrees or something like that. And I was like, Miami of all teams, and like a Mike McDaniel coach team where it feels like they're not like the most physical team in the world. And like, I kind of so I kind of revisited that sort of effect in my data, and it's like, if you looked at just the last like 15 years, it's not like statistically significant, but it is directionally correct, or it is still like, and that's using the closing line. And obviously the closing line, I think, is probably pricing that in a little more than it was before. But like, I mean, what I like about the whole thing though, is the sort of the research on it. Like, there is a reason for it, right? Like, when you're cold and uncomfortable, your body doesn't perform the same level, and like that effect is going to be stronger at the beginning of the game and all that. Although I
Yeah.
guess you do have better, like,
Wait, but Rufus, what
eaters on the
are you saying
sideline.
it's not gonna be cold in Philly or in Foxborough. It's gonna be like Philly's gonna be like mid 50s and Foxborough's gonna be mid 40s. So I don't see
Is
that.
that
And like mid 50s is like typical San Francisco weather.
Did the weather forecast change recently?
I mean,
I
I
haven't
heard
seen
it was gonna be warm in
any
the Northeast
bitterly.
like a couple weeks,
I
like
mean,
a couple days
I'm
ago.
okay because I looked at this yesterday, and I mean, the like New England's playing a night game on Sunday. Like, the forecasted temperature in Foxborough is going to be in the, it looks like, at game time 35. I mean, that's pretty cold, huh?
It's
For a
not. I don't think
satellite
that's
game.
the sort of effect. I do think you're right to point out
No,
that
but
like
it's not
by
like the 20 degree, like 20 degrees. Yes, very, very cold, but like it's, but I mean, you don't have a lot of 20-degree games. I
I
mean,
don't think that's enough to have a
Pittsburgh is going to
weather
be
effect.
31.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that the more relevant piece, certainly in kind of the like Green Bay Chicago game, is the wind.
yeah,
Like that actually, like at about 15 miles per hour, we start to see like a actual meaningful difference, and especially downfield passing, and like gusts of 30 to 35, and strengthening as the game goes on. Like that might influence the point. And I take your general point about cold weather, that like yes, it ties back to kind of a first principles view of like certain skills are rewarded in different games, and certain teams are better suited just by nature of that. Which I think kind of in some ways is how I'd approach this Packers Bears matchup. Which is, if this was not, and also like the weather can change, right? We are like, this is Wednesday. So much can change. If the Packers are playing in a game in which the wind turns out to be 10 miles per hour, I think they are at a far more advantageous position, just because. I mean, if you want to take a look at it, to take a step back for a second, the Bears like macro level defense, they've been terrible, kind of down to down, bottom of the league in basically any way you want to slice the
success.
data. Yeah, success, EPA, explosive plays, pressure rate, but coverage rate, anything you want to say, they're bottom 10 for sure. Granted, like they dealt with some injuries, but even after getting a bunch of their players back, this has been a defense which has struggled down to down, where they've kind of had a lot of their success is in taking the football away, and they have led the NFL in turnover and turnover differential. I think that's like not as sustainable. Also, like this is not a court. Jordan Love does have some like really egregious highlights of making terrible plays, but from a kind of turnover worthy play perspective and things of that degree, which try to quantify the process of turnovers, he's not exactly one that's going to turn the ball over a ton. So the kind of main angle I have in this game, and certainly if the weather cooperates, is like this is a Jordan Love's that if you want to like take any slice of basically getting at the idea of how well a quarterback is when the play is in system, or when things go right, and there's no kind of defensive disruptor. Like he's number one in EPA in every category: perfect coverage, disruption, like no cover. Like if there is a mistake on defense, or if like the offense is just allowed to do their job, there's no better quarterback at maximizing that than Jordan Love. We can have the whole discussion about like who gets the actual credit for it. That's kind of irrelevant for trying to bet on the Packers offense. Like the Bears don't do any of that disrupting. The Packers, I think, can do virtually whatever they want in that regard. And like I would love the Packers alt here, as well as like betting on Jordan Love to have success downfield. That obviously changes in a game plan which like you can't really do that because if they're 30 mile per hour winds, your downfield throws are not going to be as explosive. And the last thing I note here is that like yes, Tucker Kraft is gone, but this is the kind of first time in a while we're going to get Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, all on the field at one time. Obviously, Romeo Dobbs healthy there as well. The concussion scares me somewhat. I don't love betting on it. A quarterback is first week back from a concussion, but somewhat unclear given that he probably would have played week 18 had it been a meaningful game. So a lot of competing and confounding factors here, but it's a surprising factors for being successful. Yeah.
Malik Willis is healthy again, right, too?
I think so, yeah.
How much of a drop-off is he really? Because it seems like when Love has been out and he's played, he's looked quite good.
Yeah, I mean, he has been good. It's a different style offense. They become a lot more run-heavy, if anything. That's pretty intriguing. But I also wouldn't like over-index. The Baltimore Ravens defense was atrocious this year, and they were a real fast funnel. I wouldn't over-index too much on 21 throws against a pretty bad defense.
No, I'm thinking about other years too.
Yeah, but it's a tiny sample.
Other years? What do you mean? It's just 1 year.
Right,
he played a couple games last year.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like 1 year last year is the other year. It's not other years.
Right, but I'm saying it's not a sample of 21 throws.
Sure. But like
Malik Willis,
he has not won by passing the ball. That's not been there.
We have a larger sample from before that he wasn't very good.
Did you know that his QBR last year I guess he had 2 starts and I guess appeared in 7 games, but that's 54 pass attempts and like his QBR was 77.3. And this year it's 93.3.
So you're a Malik
obviously
Willis
very
truther,
small sample,
Rufus.
but in a small sample, he has by the metrics been better than Jordan Love. And obviously I don't think he is better than Jordan Love, but
the quarterback controversy, Rufus.
No, it's not a quarterback controversy. I'm just saying that if Love isn't right after the concussion, I still think you have a serviceable backup. If Willis,
I agree, and I think it points to Matt LaFleur's success more than anything else. Agreed with that sentiment.
Can we move over to the meaty Buffalo Bills Jaguars game? I mean, if we take
Jeff, hold on. I wanted to ask another question there. Like, I want to know how you think about because you talked about wind affecting like downfield passing. How do you think about that in terms of like props? Like, for example, I've built stuff in the prop stuff I built many years ago where, I have a factor for like, wind and temperature and stuff, like how it's going to affect a team's rush and pass rates, like how, completion percentage to wide receivers, like stuff like that, yards per completion. Like, but do you look at it more specifically as like, this is going to hurt this type of receiver much more? And do you kind of use that in your numbers?
Well, yeah, you're basically just taking the first principle effect you just described, which is like, is the team going to pass more? Are they going to run more? What kind of passing are they going to do? And then it's like, we'll break that down into its component parts. Like usually teams have receivers have a very specific role, right? They're the guy that's going to kind of hit on the 25-yard bomb, let's say. And it's possible that like route tree gets adjusted to still try. If you're Christian Watson, let's say, Christian Watson's a unique player in that like he has a very, very high ADOT and also throughout his career has been an extremely high YAC player. So it's possible they try and basically like you want to almost bet on what his route tree is going to look like. And like, are they going to manufacture him some more targets to try and get him into open space when they're trying to kind of hit on an explosive play? And like when he's in man coverage, what's going to happen? Is he going to run go routes or is he going to try and run some slants or something of that variety? But yeah, it's always a question of first principles, right? It's like, okay, are they going to run or pass more? Where is like the ADOT going to, what's the ADOT going to look like? What's that distribution going to look like? And then it's a question of, well, like if we're taking that from the quarterback's perspective, that obviously has to be true for the wide receivers. So how do things change? So that's like definitely on the player level. And then I'd also say like the interesting piece is the relationship between things like, for a quarterback's perspective, like yards, attempts, completions, and like how are those correlations going to match up? Because like we're basically throwing a new input into the data, which is like somewhat adjustable, but like you also have to root that back to priors, and it's effectively recreating a sample.
Well, and think about how the defense responds. Like the defense is less worried about the downfield passing game because of the wind. You could almost see them trying to shut down the short passing game, the screen passes, and essentially creating opportunities to take downfield shots because they don't think that because those are less likely, right? I mean, it becomes one of these. It's like no, it's game theory.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And I think the cool thing, especially when this is an island game, the only one happening at its time, is like you can, in some respects, try and see what the defense is doing. And like if you really want to get deep into it, try and basically predict how, in with live data, which is probably the most valuable in this scenario. Like how our team's playing it. What do you anticipate? Like the next 3 quarters are going to look like. The next 2 quarters are going to look like, and try and play some live bets accordingly.
All right, let's move on to the Jaguars-Bills game. Bills slight favorites in that -1 area. Is
Yeah.
this a case? Is this a case where where we have this anchoring on the quarterback story narrative, and the Jags are live here?
This is, famous last words, but the Jags and the Jags alts are my favorite spot of the week here. I think there are two pieces to this. The first, I'll start with the Jaguar side. The Jaguars have like fundamentally changed how they've operated their offense. It's one thing to look at the numbers over the second half of the season and say like, oh, this is a team that is a lot better. And just like, and I think it's fair to index a little bit on the more recent data, but I think it's an entirely different question when you look at if you can point to kind of a structural difference. The Jaguars did not throw the ball deep more than 10% of the time in basically any game pre-Jacoby Myers arriving. And since then, they've doubled that number on average. It's a team that's throwing downfield nearly 20% of the time, and that's been their area of most success. It makes sense both in terms of like how the spacing has worked on this offense, and also if you're throwing the ball downfield and you're better throwing the ball downfield, that is obviously somewhat of a cheat code. All that is to say, I don't think it's a coincidence the Jaguars' offense has been far better over the second half of the season, and I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue. That is kind of my like pro bullish Jaguars offense take, and why I think that the team is still kind of underrated relative to market pricing, which I think is over indexing a bit on kind of priors from both Trevor Lawrence beforehand and the first half of the season. The second key piece that yeah.
What about like the Bills and Josh Allen and all these how they played in the second half, and I mean, we saw it against New England, that amazing comeback. They almost beat the Eagles. Like,
yeah, well, I think it was.
By the way, I had some live. I've been kind of fading that narrative just because of it. I've been able to get some very nice prices betting on the Bills to not come back like at halftime in both those games. And I've been burned more than I haven't. But who are they? I mean,
so
why don't they play?
This was what I was about to bring up. I don't think Josh Allen's even close to healthy. And like it's one thing for me to kind of look at that from a perspective of a fan watching the game. The data is the thing that is particularly worrisome to me, which is in those last two games, particularly the second half of the Browns game and the Eagles game. His scramble rate was down like 15%. And I think this is the key. I track something called what I call like play extension or pocket extension, which is when pressure arrives, how long does it take for you either to throw the ball or like break the line of scrimmage as you're scrambling. And Josh Allen very consistently sits between the 1.6 and 2 second range. And that number was at 1%. 1 second. In the Eagles game and in the second half of the Browns game, which is like that is Josh Allen's magic sauce, is his ability in that time frame to create. We've seen countless plays, but it's obviously borne out in the data and his ability to create that. Like look, it's possible that like that was his ankle foot is healthy, and that you don't want to kind of go too heavy into that sample, but I also think it is a real reality that. Like Josh Allen's not 100%, not playing the same way, and that for a quarterback, as so much of his value comes from, in particular, that area. That if it's stripped from him, I think that is a massive red flag for the Bills.
But don't you see? I mean, for guys like the Allens and the Mahomeses of the world, that in the playoffs they do scramble more. They are willing to put their body on the line a little bit more because the regular season, I guess. maybe with the exception of the Chiefs this year, doesn't, they're going to make the playoffs, and it's like that's when they have their games with a bunch of rushing yards and rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they're for
where
sure.
they
I
don't
don't think
slide.
it's not a question of process to me.
Okay.
In the sense of like, okay, Mahomes has like a clear difference in play style. Like Josh Allen, I don't think his like play extension has to do with like taking hits. Like the that is not the same thing as a scramble where like you're going to get hit as you run. That is true, and it's also possible that Josh Allen like plays as aggressively as possible. He's just not as effective because he's hurt. Right? It's like one thing to the process can be the same, but if your body simply is not there, that is meaningful too. Right? Like none of this is dispositive. It's all just like taking a look at both what we know from how Josh Allen's play style has kind of played out the last couple of weeks, and also given his kind of traits and what makes him so successful, and why that in particular compounds. I think is very interesting. And we haven't even talked about like the Jaguars. I think this is an extremely interesting kind of cat and mouse matchup where the Bills do love to run the ball, and this is a Jaguars rush defense that's been top 5 in virtually any rush metric, and teams have passed against them more than any other opponent. Like whether the Bills do that, I don't know. The Bills have also seen a ton of man coverage this season. It makes sense given they're trotting out Josh Palmer and Keon Coleman at wide receiver. The Jaguars have been a very heavy zone team. The Jaguars step up their man coverage rate. I think they have the advantage at corner there. There are a lot of kind of interesting cat and mouse and matchup decisions that I think will go a long way in determining the outcome of the game. But it's very hard to say kind of pre-flop.
Okay. I love that. Niners getting 4.5, totals 45 in that Eagles game.
Always a tough one for me when you take kind of top percentile defense, top percentile offense, and kind of mash them together. I tend to side with the offense. I think there are some kind of major differences, and it's also somewhat quarterback dependent, right? Like Matthew Stafford to me is a quarterback that really can take advantage of a bad defense and favorable matchups. I think one of the major differences, I think on a little tangent here, one of the major differences between Matthew Stafford this year and Matthew Stafford's previous years is that the run game for LA has been so successful, which has meant a lot of favorable spots. They were basically never in third and long. It's less than 30% of the time, which is by far the best in the NFL. That type of quarterback is a lot more sensitive to matchups and being in kind of these favorable game state and match situations than even a quarterback like Brock Purdy. And I think that's kind of one of the main differences between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo is his ability to create is far better. And I think that makes him a little bit less kind of matchup sensitive. Obviously, like they also just got trounced by Seattle, who he's historically had some trouble with McDonald defenses. But I think kind of still taking and understanding like that is every bit a part of the distribution, that there is still a world of possibility where, and I think even a stronger prior where Purdy can do a very good job. Also like big injuries with Ricky Pearsall and Trent Williams in particular in the run game, I think will go a long way. That's on the 49ers side. And I guess the 49ers and Eagles matchup. What's also very intriguing to me is the Eagles offense has been terrible this year. They're like way below league average in their serious success rate. They have not really been able to run the ball effectively. I mean, you mentioned the Bills' second half. I don't know what was less serious. The Eagles threw for 0 yards in the second half and didn't complete a pass, or the fact that the Bills lost the game despite the Eagles not throwing for no yards. But like it points that that's not. Yeah,
I don't think the Eagles had a first down in the second half.
It was
they might have had one. Like,
but this is not
like 3 and outs every drive.
And this is not the first time it's happened, and it's been like that's been a pain point. Of course, like the Niners defense is not very serious either. This is among the worst pass rushes we've ever seen, and you're going to get Lane Johnson back. It is like another really intriguing matchup, which is like I don't know where to anchor on. Like, is it the Eagles offense is just not good enough to take advantage of the Niners, or like the Niners defense is so bad in its
So
current
bad.
iteration. Yeah, it's terrible in its current iteration that
It's like a very funny concept, right? Normally you're like excited about these two awesome units against each other. This one we're like whose incompetence wins out? Like
exactly.
who's
But
so
that's
bad
the
that the other team can be fine?
so the
What?
thing that I think it magnifies is like the importance of game state. If the Eagles are playing from ahead here, I think it like really reinforces the strength of them. And it is much easier when you're a really bad defense. If the Niners jump out to a 10-0 lead, right? Because the Eagles just go run, punt on the first drive. On their first drive, the Niners say get the ball first and score. It entirely changes the complexion of the game. And Jalen Hurts becomes a far less effective quarterback. The defense is able to manufacture a lot more pressure. But like, I think so much of it comes down to who jumps out to a lead, which naturally to me means like there's some, especially given the market's pricing here, there's probably some lean to the Niners and their alts, because I do think, especially on their first drive, where they've been incredibly good. Like they can very well jump out to a lead, and then the like. If we basically, here's another way of thinking about this. If we said that the Niners are up 10-0, and we retrace the like in the pregame probability, what is right? Because like the live pricing is going to be some calibration of. I probably shouldn't be saying this. Some calibration of the pregame line with the kind of adjusted game state. But if we recalibrate back to the pregame line with the knowledge that the teams are now playing with the skills that are necessary from a 10-0 game, how do we reprice that? And I think that like has an extreme kind of parameter in this game more so than others. That's kind of the lens through which I'm viewing it.
I mean, so Shanahan should basically take the ball no matter what.
I think I would.
So how do you think about the Eagles, I guess, in terms of their upside? I mean, I think they're priced like in futures markets as if they have high end potential. And it feels like they should have the necessary ingredients to be a top tier offense. And it's like they've been, based on what they've done in the past years, it feels like they're playing below their sort of upside, right? If you kind of think of this is the range they could be in, they're at the low side of it. They've been at the low side of their range. Do they, is there sort of like they're a team that's sort of underperformed but have this potential to get to a much more high level on offense? Or do you
there are some assumptions I think that are built in there, which is like that the ceiling is kind of solely player determined. And I think there's like what undergirds a lot of your question is like, how good is Jalen Hurts? But where I dispute you is I think the offensive play caller has made a huge difference in Philadelphia over the years. And that's been very much a determinant of the ceiling. So, and also just like I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's connected to the play calling. None of us really know. Like their run game has not been as effective as it's been in years past. That is just a reality. And that's going to change the entire complexion of your offense. So taking a macro view, look, the offense hasn't been good this year. Like it's very rare to have Super Bowl winning teams that are well below average in their series success rate. They've got like the 7th lowest explosive play rate. Anchoring too much on the fact that like, hey, this team went to Super Bowl when they were a different team with a different play caller, I think is probably a bit of a fool's errand. But at the same time, like it's somewhat likely they're playing some home games. Like they're going to be favorites. They have a very good defense. It's not as though so much needs to go right for them to end up in the NFC Championship game. But I think if we kind of take like a perfect truth perspective as to how this goes, as to like who's really the best teams, I mean, they're lacking in the most important thing there is right now, which is a dominant offense.
Okay, can we talk about like, are there any teams in your opinion that you think have the upside to reach a level way above where they are right now? And then on the other side of things, are there teams that are like pretty good, but they just you don't think have that sort of upside potential?
Yeah, I mean, like it's also interesting because you're having a team like the Niners has the offensive upside. Their defense is just not serious, and it's really hard to win with it with a defense that bad. Like you really need to basically be perfect on offense, which they can do. I think the Patriots are a very interesting example. They have I actually do think they have the elite upside on offense, and I think the defense, especially with Milton Williams back, and Christian and Robert Spillane back, like the run defense, I think is gonna be a lot better. They have that potential where if everything goes right, I think they can win. But that's part of the beauty, and the Rams too.
Yeah.
The Seahawks, I think, are still really hamstrung. You need Sam Darnold in that good game state, and that is like a real limitation. But I guess you can make the case for the Seahawks too.
You need
it's
to
just a
Sam
lot.
Darnold.
Yeah, but that's the point. It's like every team has a major weakness this year that is not so easily overcome by just like your quarterback's an alien.
Okay,
Like,
so Seahawks are a team with a
that's the Bills.
lower upside relative to where they are right now. Like,
Yeah,
are there any others?
but this is all from a perspective of like perfect truth. The Seahawks have the wonderful advantage of needing to play 3 games and not 4. And there's some probability you lose every time. So that's like very, very important. Same with the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos defense is that good. And certainly the offense is extremely hamstrung by what Bo Nix can do.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, that's interesting because I think of it more like we have our power ratings for these teams, but we don't actually know what their real rating is, and it's like what are in the universe of possible ratings they could have. Like we have a rating that's the midpoint of this distribution of what it could be, and it's like which teams could it be the highest on and the lowest on relative to what their median
and understanding injuries and matchups and how the injuries have changed also are extremely meaningful.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on. Sorry for that digression.
No, that's interesting. And again, like as someone that's read Jude's stuff all year, like what he's always looking for is where the market may be wrong. So where that midpoint may be wrong based on like things that have changed over the last few weeks in terms of the way teams are playing and injuries coming back and like looking for enough signals. So I do think it's a relevant question to ask, like which teams can be different than what the market thinks they are right now.
Yeah, it's not about the mid. It's right. It's about the tails of the distribution, not the midpoint.
Well, it's about the tails that represent where there's some evidence or some counterfactual that actually represents why the tail might be more predictive than the midpoint.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go to that Chargers-Patriots game then.
Yeah, the kind of key question to me is how the Chargers' offensive line, or how Herbert mitigates basically the Patriots. They're going to have a pass rush. This is a team that I tried something called pressure disruption, which is any play in which pressure arrives at the quarterback that he can't go through his route, basically forcing a quarterback to create. Unsurprisingly, the Chargers are among the worst in the NFL this year. The Patriots are 6th over the last couple of weeks. Herbert's going to be under pressure. These pressure disruption plays lose on average half a point per drop back. They're at a league worst right now, like 25%. Like a fourth of the pass plays are likely to be of this variety. It's obviously very hard to be successful when you have that. I think kind of the key compounding issue here, the Patriots' run defense has been horrible for the second half of the season after being terrific the first half. And I think you can kind of point to a couple players who were injured in Milton Williams and Robert Spillane, who are going to be back. And this is a Patriots team that is remarkably healthy now, basically missing Mac Hollins and Antonio Gibson, who is the 3rd-string running back. So I think you're looking at a lot of situations where Herbert is really going to need to create on his own, because there are going to be lots of 3rd and longs. I think this is the Patriots' run defense that should be able to stymie this Chargers rush attack. And this is a Patriots unit that I think is going to be able to get pressure just with the state of the Chargers offensive line, and even themselves have actually been pretty decent in this area. The way I think the Chargers win this game is Herbert has been scrambling a lot more this season. You're going to need for him to extend plays and for the Chargers wide receivers to win their man coverage matchups against New England. I think there's a lot of emphasis on whether those guys can get open, considering the New England play style. And Herbert's going to have to do it on his own, as he has all season. That I think is going to be a major deciding factor. I lean on the side of the Patriots defense is going to be able to slow down Herbert pretty dramatically, given just how bad this offensive line is and the relative health of their defense. The other side of the ball is also an interesting case. The Chargers for a bunch of years now, really since Jesse Minter arrived, have anchored in on slowing down explosive plays. And we talked about the Rams have been so successful, definitely explosive, but also they've been down successful. They're just never in third and longs. A lot of the Patriots' success comes from their ability to generate explosive plays. They have the highest explosive play rate in the NFL. I think the question becomes, like, can this Chargers defense systemically slow them down? And that's been an area where they've been extremely successful in the past. And again, it's going to get at the question of, like, when you have elite offense, when you have, I don't want to say they're an elite defense here, but a defense that is very good at this one thing, who wins that interaction? In general, I think offense tends to drive this sort of interaction. I think it's important to kind of boil down the component parts, though, in isolating a matchup. I, again, lean with the side of the Patriots, but there's definitely a world of possibility where the Chargers can really slow down Drake May, eliminate those explosive plays or limit those explosive plays, and we end up in a very close kind of battle where neither offense is going to be successful.
Roof, you came off mute.
Oh yeah.
Are you going to say something? Or
no,
you just came off mute?
I lean Patriots here. I don't. Yeah, I think I don't
As do
see
I.
how the numbers as low as it is, but
I think there's also a real possibility the Patriots completely blow them out. That I think is true of this game more than any other, just because of exactly what I described. Which is, like, if the Patriots are hitting on these explosive plays, they're going to be scoring points quick. And then if Herbert is down here, the Patriots pass rush, I think, is going to absolutely feast. And you're looking at lots of sacks and turnovers, short drives, and ways that the Patriots can really run up the score.
and the Patriots have shown the ability to do that this year. I mean, especially in recent weeks.
Yeah. I mean,
Although then Buffalo came back on them. But
as a Patriots fan, though, part of it is the fact that they've played a pretty easy schedule, right?
Yes, for sure. But
they're running out to leads against the
you
Jets
can only play who's in front of you.
Yeah,
that's right. And the Chargers just showed us that they're vulnerable, explosive plays. The Texans just feasted on.
Steelers, Texans to round it out. Texans,
this is such an interesting one.
This is a very interesting game.
I
think kind of another one where game state matters a lot to me. The Steelers are somewhat well suited to actually mitigate the Texans pass rush because they throw quick passes at a historic rate. It also really helps that they'll have DK Metcalf to be able to win after the catch. He's kind of been their best receiver. With that said, Aaron Rodgers has been extremely pressure sensitive. And, like, quick passes only get you so far. When it's 3rd and 8, the quick passes are not going to help you. And there you have a huge mismatch between a Texans defensive line that, again, is going to be top of the league in any pressure rate, and a quarterback and offense that really is not designed to be successful on throws that don't happen within 2.5 seconds of the snap. That I think is a major advantage for Houston. But again, if the Steelers are playing from ahead, they can continue to methodically go 7 yards at a time. It's very hard to sustain those drives, but also if you're in that rhythm, the Steelers are I think, a very capable offense. And the other side of the ball, also very interesting, is, like, the Steelers pass rush. First off, like, getting Derek Harmon back has been a major difference to the Steelers rushing attack or rush defense, I should say. Again, you don't want to anchor too much on off splits, but it's taken them from a bottom half of the league rush defense to a top of the league rush defense with Harmon on the field. It's not as though the Texans are a terrific rushing offense, but again, these things really do matter on the margins for a quarterback like CJ Stroud, who is very sensitive to pressure. I mean, it's like it's borne out in the data, but I think anyone who's watched CJ Stroud in prime time has noticed the jittery feet, and just, like, he is not comfortable when pressure arrives. That's the strength of the Steelers defense. You don't want to anchor too much on previous week's data because TJ Watt has not been there. But I think from a prior point of view, this is a Steelers top 5 pass rush. And if you get them going against a still bad Texans offensive line, that is something that goes in their favor. The kind of flip side to that, especially if they're able to kind of mitigate the Steelers' pass rush. CJ Stroud has had some pretty drastic man zone splits. The Steelers' defense has really not been able to defend the pass if the pass rush does not get home. And the Steelers play a ton of man coverage. And I think this is a spot where no one's really going to be able to guard Nico Collins. They've done a really great job of getting Jaden Higgins involved as kind of the secondary receiver they didn't have without Tank Dell earlier. And I think this is a spot where the Texans' passing offense can very, very much have success. It's just a question of game state, I think. In a neutral and positive one, I think they're going to be able to have a really great day. In a negative game state, I'm very concerned from a Texans perspective with their ability to handle the Steelers' pass rush.
It almost seems like that you're kind of saying the same thing both ways. Like if either team is in a situation where they have to drop back and pass every down, it could be a problem. Sliding.
Yeah. And I think this game is less likely. These offenses, but like base rates, are less likely to have a ton of very early success. But I think we're probably going to be in a neutral game state for most of this. And I don't have a very strong opinion. The way you framed it would have me on Pittsburgh slightly. And maybe that's true. But it's not a game I'm certainly pre-flop dying to bet.
Can we look at the under there, or is that already just too low, 39.5?
It's really low.
Yeah. All right. Any other words of wisdom for our 7 listeners on the Wildcard Weekend?
No, I'm just this is my favorite weekend of football of the year. I'm super
Wildcard Weekend.
Super Wildcard Weekend.
We got starting tomorrow. We got the college games, so we got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We got 5 straight
Holy
days.
Moly.
It is going to be awesome.
It's going to be great. Judah, do you have any futures you like? Any teams that I don't know how much you look at that, but I mean, I'm.
Yeah, I've got one. It's the Jaguars. I think this is an offense that has elite ceiling. I obviously like them this week, which I think is kind of the toughest test. And what's very intriguing to me about the Jaguars is they are one of the best teams in the NFL with the 4-man rush, and that's what they do. And if you can win with the 4-man rush, it's a lot easier to have some secondary help. Their run defense has been great. I trust this coaching staff. It's a wide open year. I think the kind of market right now is, again, it's partially a directional view on the game against the Bills. But when you ask if every team puts it together, who do I think has the ceiling? I think it's the Jaguars.
Interesting. Okay.
Love it. Love it. All right, Judah, thanks for joining us. Maybe we'll talk to you later. Maybe we'll do a Super Bowl episode. We can get you on for some props or something like that.
Yeah. So, thanks for having me, guys.
And just tell everyone where they can see your work again.
Yeah, Throwthedamball. Dam spelled D-A-M. Didn't get the domain name. It is available now. Actually, I've been debating making the switch. But yeah, that is my Twitter handle, my Substack. You can also just Google Judah Fortgang. It'll come up there.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us.
Bet the process.